Shalom and welcome to People on the Path. My name is Adam Lowy, and I am the lifelong learning Moreh Derech at Congregation Beth Shalom in San Francisco. Each month, I will welcome dynamic guests to discuss, learn, and consider what it means to be on the path. How does an individual's choices impact their path? How do the various communities that an individual participates in change their lives forever? What unsuspecting moments became the powerful ones that inform personal and professional journeys? Where does one's relationship to their Jewish identity take surprising turns, and how does it spiritually manifest? I intend for the conversation to be intimate, unscripted, and informal. The possibilities and potential will be infinite. The directions, ways, and paths will be explored, discovered, and open. Let us please take a walk together on this month's People on the Path. As anyone who's been watching People on the Path knows, it's become tradition for me to check in with our senior rabbi, Rabbi Dan Ain. Before I introduce the guests, Rabbi Ain, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks. We have an unusual sunny day today in the city, which
It's unseasonably warm for July.
which was a treat. I got to spend the day this morning out with a member of the congregation talking at a cafe, and it was lovely. And I always look forward to these monthly conversations, and I'm excited for our guest today. However,
I just want to pause you for 1 second.
Okay.
And give you a little bit of feedback on your People on the Path program. So we have been, I'm not sure how many you've done now, if this is 8 or 9 people on the path or peoples on the path, but we can have fun with how we pluralize that. But I just want to say that you got some feedback on your previous last month's episode, which was with Rabbi Sandra Lawson. And I just wanted to share it because in preparation for this conversation, we were talking to our guest, and we were explaining that you like to ask questions and let the guests speak so that we can get to know people. And this comment on your program comes from, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Nigist Dakar. And she writes, I have only recently been encountering Rabbi Lawson, primarily via Zoom webinars, but this is the first time that I've actually learned so much personal background information, which explained just so much about her. I see why we have so many differences, but also some fundamental similarities and experiences. Thank you for speaking to the racism that can be found within Jewish spaces. I wish her well. Yasher Koach and Shalom, sister. So I just think that that's wonderful. And the way that you've been leading these conversations provides a nice step away from the, quick answers, quickly digestible dialogues that we have, and really provide a chance to get to know people. And you have one of the most interesting, fascinating congregants that we have. I'll give he's back now on our board of directors for our congregation, and we're thrilled to have him back. And his life story, a little bit of which I have been blessed to hear about, but a lot more I'm going to learn about here today. So I'm looking forward to it. And kol hakavod with all that you're doing for our community.
Thank you, Rabbi. And before, I really appreciate the feedback. I just love that people from all over the globe are potentially checking in on these people on the path, and it's great to hear from people. So thank you for sharing that. It warms me up to hear that type of feedback. I just wanted to ask before you go, because I know you don't always get asked questions in such capacity. And so I just wanted to ask you, what are you excited about at Beth Shalom right now? Like, what is
I'm excited to be, I've been saying this. Rabbi Russell came back and led Shacharit service last Shabbat for the first time since her second child was born. It's been a while since we were blessed to come together and be able to pray with Rabbi Russell. And she has a wonderful way of leading tefillah in a way that you don't really appreciate as much as we've benefited from our online programs. You don't really appreciate. And so being in that space last Shabbat as she was leading it, it was just different. It was just a different experience, and it was really amazing. And people were singing together, and it was the first time that it worked. It really worked for me. First time it worked for me. I've been leading the prayer, so I don't know what that says, but it was special, and I'm excited for more of that. And I look forward to everything that we have in store. So
Yeah,
thank you for asking.
agreed. It's great to have Rabbi Russell back. She holds an incredible space at Beth Shalom for the community, and we all missed her. So it's great to have her back. Thanks, Rabbi Ain. I'll call you back in a bit to join our conversation with our guests. So, Mark, if you would like to turn on your camera, it is my honor to welcome this month's guest, Mark Gunther. Mark has been many things in his life: student, hippie, cook, husband, carpenter, father, dancer, administrator, musician, entrepreneur, and cyclist. Now retired, he worked in staff or board roles in small businesses and nonprofit organizations for 40 years. In 1999, he and his wife started the Eva Gunther Foundation, giving to girls and girls programs. He remains the managing director there. Mark, a co-founder, chairs the board of Alliance for Girls, as he has since its inception in 2012. In December of 2015, Mark received an MFA in creative writing from USF. He has since been published in several literary journals, and in 2018 published his novel of child loss, Without Jenny. A member of CBS since 1986, Mark chaired the building committee throughout the reconstruction of the CBS campus. From 2000 to 2008, he was a member of the finance committee for a number of years. He served one term on the board from 2009 to 2011, and as Rabbi Ain said, he recently rejoined the board for a second term. Mark, welcome to People on the Path. Thank you for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing just fine, Adam. Thanks for asking.
According to your bio, you are many things, and I hope to hear about all of them at some point today. Again, student, hippie, cook, husband, carpenter, father, dancer, administrator, musician, entrepreneur, cyclist. So my first question is, which of these words best describe you today, right now?
Man. Man is the word that describes me the best. You know, I mean, when you live, everybody lives a diverse life. And how do you embrace the things in life that come to you? You know, it's like you can drive yourself to seek meaning in your life, or you can instead find meaning in the things that come to you. And this is what I've always tried to do. And so each one of those things at the time I was doing them was, not all consuming, but a full engagement. And I'm fully engaged now in the various roles that I have in my life today.
And you feel like man kind of umbrellas it all at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark, I don't know if you've watched People on the Path or how much you know exactly about what you're getting yourself into today, but I will just say People on the Path is really an opportunity for us to learn about an individual's journey. And so how did you become so many things? I mean, you kind of just described that sort of that you met it, like it came to you and you embraced it. But I mean,
I always did the next thing. I was a young man in the 1960s, and I had my social awareness awakening in 1967 at an anti-war demonstration in front of the Century Plaza Hotel in Los Angeles, my first encounter with police violence. The very next day, my family flew to Africa, and there I had my first encounter with poverty, real poverty. And so those two things really shocked me out of my I was 16 years old, shocked me out of my 16-year-old complacency. And I then went to Berkeley and matriculated there in 1968. And in short order, we had the Third World Strike, the anti-war demonstrations in People's Park. And so I really became committed to building an alternative life at that point, and that led me into food conspiracies and food cooperatives. At that time, if you wanted brown rice, you couldn't buy it anywhere except in rare specialty shops. And so the food conspiracy movement was this first attempt to bring natural whole foods to the public. And, that was a battle that we won. When you can buy brown rice in Safeway, you know that you won, right?
All right, so let's unpack a little bit of that answer right there. Why did your family go to Africa when you were 16?
My parents were consumers of international travel experiences, and they had gone to Europe in the Soviet Union in 1959, and they continued to travel. And when my brothers got old enough, they are 6 and 8 years younger than I, they started traveling with the family. And I only did one more trip with them after the Africa one. And but they continued to do quite a bit of international travel.
Do you think that it was the intention of your parents to bring you to a place that poverty was going to be in your face like that, or did you? And so how did that?
I think that was an extra added bonus.
And how did I'm assuming a lot of things about your parents, and I would love to hear a bit more about them. But I ask first, like, how did they address it when it became such an apparent part of that experience?
They didn't, I think. It's hard to remember. What I remember is that I went back to the hotel, and this was in Addis Ababa. And I went back to the hotel and I wouldn't leave for the remainder of our time there. And, I would imagine my parents tried to be philosophical about it and somehow make it a learning experience for me. But for me, the emotional shock of it was quite dramatic.
Wow. And you just felt it was safer for you not to leave to witness it, or?
Yeah, I think so. Thinking back on it, I think I was so disgusted by my privilege that I couldn't stand, parading my fat, happy 16-year-old body out in front of all of these people who had so much less than me.
Wow. And so you came back, and so it was that moment that you went to that protest in Los Angeles, and then you went to Africa, and then you kind of already knew you wanted to end up at Cal, or was that all part of kind of
my uncle? Some of your listeners may know him. Is Leon Litwack, who was a really well-known history professor there, and he had been working on me since the time I was about 11 or 12 years old to get me to come up there. And so, I pretty much had that in my mind. Also, the University of California was very accessible to us California students at that time.
So Mark, how would you like describe that kind of religion or spirituality was existing in your home at that time, or even as a younger child in your home? How was...
Jewish identity was a strong part of my upbringing. My mother did, we observed Shabbat with, just the 3 prayers before dinner, but we never went to shul or anything like that, other than on the high holidays. I was in a Reform synagogue. I had a bar mitzvah, but I didn't really learn. I memorized my parashah. I didn't learn trope or anything like that. And, but I tried to take it seriously. And here's a story you'll like in the role that you're in here. I wrote my bar mitzvah was shortly after John F. Kennedy's assassination. And so I wrote my Haftorah was Jeremiah, the beginning of Jeremiah, about him being called. And so I wrote about Kennedy being called to go to Dallas, and he didn't know what was going to happen. And just like Jeremiah didn't know what was going to happen. And so the director of the religious school took that speech and completely rewrote it, removing all references to Kennedy, completely undermined my whole thing. And at that point, my dad went to bat for me, and I was able to give the speech more or less as I wrote it. But it was, sort of kind of an interesting thing. And I think among, one of the things that we're struggling with at Beth Shalom now is creating a religion that's immediately relevant to people, however you participate in it. And so that was a great example about what not to do in that case. And so, but Jewish identity has always been a big part of my life. And, but if you had asked me prior to Eva's death, whether, if I believed in God, I would have given you one of those agnostic answers.
Yeah.
But after Eva was killed, which was in 1997, that very night, I had a numinous visitation from God. And, ever since then, it really, and then of course, Judaism, as the undertaker in North Carolina said to me, "You Jews really know how to do death," he said to me.
Wow.
And so so we had that, so we had the map of Jewish mourning, and that really sort of projected us in, and that's ultimately what I wrote about in Without Jenny. So
I wasn't planning to jump into
well, you don't have to. We can come
this
back
part
to
so
it.
quick, but I want to, but I feel like it's important, based on a conversation that you and I had a while back. I think it's important for people to understand how you got to Beth Shalom, and kind of what was happening at that time in your life, and kind of how you I don't know if stumbled is the right word, but
I like that story. Yeah, well, Ann and I got married in 1975, and we moved to San Francisco in 1982 from Sonoma County, and Eva was born in 1984. And we moved over to this neighborhood, the house that I'm sitting in right now, where we've been for 35 years. We moved here in 1985. And so the second day of Rosh Hashanah, we went shul shopping. And in this neighborhood, the Inner Richmond, we have a few shuls around. And so we walked over to Emmanuel, and, neither of us liked the apes and the knave that they have over there. And we went to Magen David Sfard, but they still had a mechitza, and so that was out. And we strolled down to Beth Shalom, and we walked in the door, and there were these guys up on stage davening, and there were kids running around in the aisle, and people were talking to each other, and it was really a Hamish kind of a place. And so that was where we came. It touched us in that way, and we joined the synagogue in 1986 and have been members ever since.
And I want to, if it's okay with you, I want to read a paragraph that I found, that you wrote in Still Standing magazine, which described exactly the words that you just used. I want to read a little bit more fully if I can. It's from an article you wrote in May of 2017, called "A Lesson of Love." And this is part of it. We buried our firstborn daughter, Eva, in 1997. She was 12, killed by a drunk driver while under my care. There was no doubt at the moment of impact, even before I watched her broken body fly 130 feet through the air, I saw her spirit elevate off this earth. Later that night, when the local rabbi, we were 3,000 miles from home, came to the hotel room to recite the vidui, the prayer of forgiveness, something strange and wonderful happened. Eva, for it had to be her, reached into my chest and slapped my heart with an open palm, delivering a numinous explosion of godly spirit that fully penetrated my whole body. A powerful reminder that love was resident in my heart. That Eva, she must have been surprised to find herself dead, and typically her first thought was of me. Even in my sick grief, I recognize it as her gift to me, reminding me there was a way to live after her loss. So, Margaret, that writing, I mean, it's incredible to read how you've written about that experience and that moment. I can't fathom what you were experiencing. I have a 12-year-old daughter right now, and I'm just so amazed that you can share this with us. And I wanted to ask you, you said that you came to Beth Shalom around, the mid 80s, but I also believe in a conversation that you and I had before that this entirely changed your relationship to Beth Shalom, this moment in your life. And I would love for you to tell us a bit about how that manifested, and how that brought you
Well,
closer to the community and closer to your Judaism
yeah,
and
well,
to God.
yeah, I mean, the short answer is it was Rabbi Lou. He, we had I flew home and we came home, and Anne had already spoken to him, and he came over that afternoon, and we went, I can't remember if he went with us to pick out the grave site. He may have, or it may have just been Anne and I and my dad. But basically it was Rabbi Lou. He said to us, I'm infinitely available to you, he said. And the fact that he was, in fact, always available, and some of those encounters are lightly fictionalized and without Jenny. And, and the fact that the synagogue community was so present for us. We had never been regular attendees, but we went, we didn't go daily, but we went every week to say Kaddish, and, often we're sitting there crying and so forth. And one of the things I think that this practice offers is the opportunity to be seen in your new life. I mean, when you lose a child, I think even more so than losing a parent, the world is supremely disordered, right? This is not the way it's supposed to happen. We invest all of our hopes and dreams in children, and when the children die, not only do we lose them, we lose the hopes and dreams, and there are, constant, it ripples throughout the rest of your life. Like now, at this point in life, all of our friends have become or are becoming grandparents, and, we won't have children of Eva's. Sophie may have children, we still may have the opportunity to be grandparents, but we don't know. So many things we didn't do with Eva that all of our friends do as a matter of course. Mm-hmm. And, the loss for Sophie of her big sister and sort of all of that. But so the fact that the community, that we were able to be in the community in our grief, people brought us food from either that community or our school community for a couple of months. And we became regular attendees at shul. At that point, it took 5 years to even start to feel human again. And, and by that time, we just were, we had just yielded to being the community, as I yielded to that whole list of roles that you listed for me in the beginning, right? So I felt, so because they were there, I just felt like I had an infinite amount of capacity to give back. And that's why I ended up chairing the building project.
Yeah.
With joy.
Yeah. How did you, you said, you just said 5 years or so. How did you believe you started to kind of claw your way out of that space?
Well, you just, you just start having experience that includes the dead child, right? So you always have there's always a present tense relationship with both with the grief and the loss. And there's a past tense relationship with the joy and the hope. And so, you just become good at, coping with it, essentially. There's no magic to it. You accommodate. What are you going to do? You didn't get to die, right? She died. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And so what kind of things did you did you start to kind of bring into your life that maybe you hadn't been before? I mean, like you weren't. I don't know. Were you a writer before you
No,
decided to go to?
shul attendance is the one thing.
Yeah.
And I had thought about, I had never been a creative writer. I'd done a lot of business writing, of course, but, and, professional type writing. And, but I started writing this novel when I was 60, I took a writing course, and the seeds of the novel began in that course. And that was purely on a lark, just to do something different. And I then wrote it after a year and a half. I had 90,000 words. And I showed it to a couple of friends who were writers, and they said, you have something here, but you really need to learn what you're doing. So then I went back to school. I got an MFA, went to USF, I got an MFA, and worked on the book throughout that time. And here it is. So, but, I don't know that certainly, there's all kinds of experiences you have in your life that leaven you. And while losing a child is a pretty dramatic one, riding my bike across the country was a pretty dramatic one. And, having a 45-year marriage is a pretty dramatic one. And so having parents who are still alive in their mid to late 90s is another one. And so, life operates on you in the way that it does, and it's up to you how you engage with it. And some days you engage well, and some days you're pretty sucky at it, right? And so,
Yes. Amen.
so I don't, it's really, I think the desire to sort of define things, to shape them in a way that's clear and precise is a strong desire in many of us, but misguided, because that's just not how it works.
Mark, thank you for sharing it. It's just some incredible wisdom, and I really appreciate hearing it. I have to say, when I first started working at Beth Shalom, which is just about a year now, whenever I had a question about the building or using certain spaces, I was consistently encouraged to, quote unquote, ask Mark Gunther. So Mark, and again, in that list of things, none of them except the word carpenter express any relationship to physical buildings. So how did you become such an integral part of the physical aspect of Beth Shalom?
Well, I joined the building committee, and I just continued to take on responsibility, and wasn't afraid of taking on the responsibility, and decided very early on that my role was to be an advocate for the project. So I very much constrained my point of view, and and it was fun. It was rewarding. I was able to give back. I could give back concretely to Beth Shalom in a way that it had given so much to me. And concretely, that was not a joke, by the way, but should have been, I suppose.
It was a good one.
And my role on the project was owner. It wasn't architect or project manager or owner's representative or anything like that. And I wasn't afraid to make decisions. I would go and consult with Sandy, first with Sandy Goldstein, and then with Sue Rushikoff, who were our presidents during the construction period. But more or less, once the decision was made to go on the project, I was going to see it through. So.
And how did the plaza get named for Eva?
We gave $1 million. Our family gave $1 million to the project. So we bought it, basically. No mystery. We still have some unnamed spaces, Adam. The main meeting room, the boardroom, we're happy. The lobby, well, the Fields Rayant lobby, that's named, but we haven't named the Rabbi Russell's office. And so we still have plenty of naming opportunities for you or for anybody else who's watching this video to participate in. please, get in touch with Vered. She'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. I'm certain.
Well, I'm glad that that Eva's name lives there, regardless of how that happened, which I'm grateful for that contribution to the community. It means a lot to me to see her name whenever I'm up there, and to get a better sense of why I think it's critical that the space is named in her honor, and that we're just blessed to have you and Anne a part of the community. And I haven't met Sophie, but I hope to. And I know that at this time, Rabbi Ain is behind the scenes and wants to come and engage with this conversation. So Rabbi Ain, would you join us?
And normally I have
Can we
one.
take a pause? Can we take a pause?
Yeah, sure. We can take a pause. Absolutely. All right. Oh, yes. I was saying that I normally have one card for these interviews of some notes, but for yours, Mark, I have three. And you're born in July? Were you born in July?
January.
Oh, I looked up Jeremiah. I looked up when it was 1964 when the Jeremiah Haftarah was. So
It was Shemot. My parsha was Shemot.
Oh, your parsha was Shemot. Oh, very lovely. Well, I completely agreed with your sentiment that was the exact wrong way to educate a bar mitzvah student. That it's exactly by encouraging them, irrespective of how that rabbi or teacher might have felt about Kennedy or whatever, to encourage you to find those connections. And so that is absolutely what
That's why we like you.
That's right. And that's what Adam tries to do and Rabbi Russell tries to do. Okay, so a few questions. Let's first of all begin with this wonderful, beautiful statement. The desire to shape things as clear and precise is misguided. Well, I mean, haven't you been in the Bay Area long enough to know that is our biggest fetish here, is to make things clear and precise and systematized? How's that done for us? Well,
I think the dynamic, you can certainly, the dynamic is striving for that, but with the knowledge, I mean, you talk about this all the time. You strive for this, you always fall short, right? In fact, you and I have had this discussion more than once in Torah study, right?
Amen.
About the failures of the forefathers and all of that business. And it's just sort of a story of one failure after another. And so the question isn't, you can try to reach precision, but life is actually really messy. And so, that's where the nature of things is in living with that.
I mean, I think I'm really touched. I think that's the heart of the Torah that you have to teach, Mark. I mean, what I wanted to ask you before you said that was to talk about personal reinvention. I told Adam that you were an entrepreneur who sold dinosaur trading cards, and you biked. There they are. There they are.
Here they are. You want to see them? There we go. You like those?
There we go. Let me spotlight on you. Let me give you a spotlight.
Right. We can do it some other time. Right.
Are you a fan of dinosaurs? Is that
no, this was basically coincidental. I had finished one. So I was working in a magazine publishing company. We sold it. I was the general manager. And so the guys who bought it wanted to do that role. And one of the guys who worked for us in the art department was a dinosaur aficionado, and it looked like a pretty good idea. I knew that Jurassic Park was coming out, and so I did these, and I sold, 26 million dinosaur cards in 8 months, and then I didn't sell one.
The fad was over.
Yeah,
so you're like the fad king. You're to a certain extent, you're like the fad king. I mean, you were in Berkeley in '68, right? But one of the things that's interesting to me is that people sometimes get stuck and can't move on to the next thing. One of the great lessons of our Torah and our tradition is about teshuvah, about, changing your path and starting again, and personal reinvention. Rabbi Akiva didn't start learning Torah until he was 40. Uh, and tell us a little bit, I guess, of your ability to just move off of something. You know, how did you know when something went cold? I mean, a lot of people will continue to drill, you know, after they've run dry. But I guess, where did you get that sort of ability to just move forward and not get stuck in pitfalls?
Well, I guess I'm just not that focused. I just sort of, I just sort of go on to the next thing. Something happens and it fails, or it succeeds and it comes to a natural ending. And then I just do the next thing. I mean, I'm married to somebody. I'm married to somebody who's highly disciplined and focused. And in certain ways, I'm very disciplined when it comes to sort of practice, but I'm not so disciplined when it comes to planning or organizing myself. And we bought our first house in 1975, and there's been this dramatic rise up in home values. And so we've had that bit of security in our life throughout. And I think situation would be very different if I didn't have that security. We were always able to meet the mortgage, and we had the home to come back to. And, if we had to get a home equity loan one year, well, we did. And, and so I think that the capacity that I've had to, as our family's wealth has grown too, that's something it's a very, very special thing, but it really enabled me to make the kind of choices that I did. And so,
but I also see that in terms of being a real artist. Like, one of my favorite artists is David Bowie. And one of the beautiful things about Bowie was that he could change his style, and that he found a way constantly to reinvent himself in a miraculous new style, in a way that was relevant to people that he was communicating with. And he had the chutzpah, or the strength of character, or the belief in his own sort of artistry, to not get locked into any one particular mode. And it seems with you, I mean, I know you're an expert dancer. I mean, we haven't even talked about your dancing and all that you have done there. The ability to go in and out of different modes of expression, not get tied down to one, I think is a beautiful example. And I do think it comes back to not having to be perfect. I think it comes down, like, if you're pushed by this desire to be perfect, then you're going to get stuck on one path the whole way down. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of the advice that my grandfather gave me, who said, I was a philosophy major. And he said, Danny, he used to call me Danny. He said, Danny, you're going to get stuck all the way down. He goes, it's much smarter to go an inch deep and a mile wide than a mile deep and an inch wide. Because you just get a richer experience of the world around you. And so maybe. And so a little bit about what I hear from you is just your ability, and also to live with loss, I think, is important too. The way you described Eva sort of being with you and incorporating her into your life in the present, I think is another very meaningful lesson that you've taught us as to how we can move forward, not get stuck, but continue to live this life. And I just think, coming from you, it's particularly powerful to hear.
I mean, it's interesting to hear the point of view of people who are outside me, because I'm always just me, right? I'm always inside me. So nothing that I do seems particularly different than anything else that I've done. And, it's just sort of, life has just kind of been chugging along, and now, it's kind of continuing to, but I don't see myself as having, done all of this transformation or anything. I recognize that I have a diversity of interests, and that, I'm certainly a lot more athletic than most guys my age, and not everybody has written a novel and so forth. But for me, it just seems to be, it's in the course of my life. And I have the same I have plenty of insecurities and, self-abnegation, and I go through a lot. We were just talking about this last week, right? And so, I go through a lot of tsuris just the way everybody else does. I'm blessed with a wife who loves me, and a wonderful child, and a strong family. And I've I've made a place for myself in these communities, Beth Shalom and a couple of others. So, but again, it doesn't seem like I've done anything particularly special. I've just kind of stumbled from one thing to the next.
And I think you've shared that the commitment that you've shown and the energy and the effort that you put in, like in particular to the shul, yields results. And so I'm going to jump off. The last question I have for you is a light question, which is, I know you're a deadhead. So, I mean, best show you went to, first show you went to?
Oh, goodness. Let's see. Well, I mean, the first show I went to, Dead Show, it must have been in the fall, in the autumn of 1968, probably at the Avalon or someplace, or the Fillmore, maybe someplace like that. And, the best show I ever went to, I'm not really that kind of a deadhead. The most fun show are the ones that I played at in my Blue Bear Grateful Dead bands. But you're going to have an opportunity to witness me as a deadhead, because my birthday party on January, my second annual 70th birthday party on January 2nd at the Shul is going to feature the China Cats, a Grateful Dead cover band. So
wonderful. Oh, so you played you had your own Dead
just
cover.
through Blue Bear. Do you know Blue Bear?
I don't know.
So Blue Bear is a 50-year-old music school in the Bay Area, and one of the programs that they have is adult bands, where they bring 7 people together with an instructor for 10 weeks, and then you play a 40-minute set in a bar.
Oh, awesome. And
so I've done, you've heard me play a couple of times. I've done 5 or 6 of those bands, and 2 of them were Grateful Dead music. One of them was songs from 1967. One of them was songs from 1969. So yeah, that's fun. Blue Bear, they're a great institution.
Well, I look forward to celebrating your second annual birthday, 70th birthday. And thank you so much.
In the way, so.
Thank you so much for doing this and for sharing your story with us and with our community. And thank you for rejoining our board. We're thrilled to have you and your participation.
All right, we'll see you on Shabbat.
Thank you, Rabbi Ain. Mark, I think that there's something that Rabbi Ain was maybe alluding to that perhaps makes you unique in the sense that you found a way to share your experience with others throughout. And, whether that's writing a book or playing music, or there's another, I'm pulling out from a conversation that we had when we had a meal together, when you were describing your life in, I believe it was Colorado at that point, and that you had started a co-op.
Oh yeah, the restaurant, huh?
And then you just gave it away. Like you literally gave it.
Well, you can read about that. I wrote a piece about that that's also there on my website about the Carnival Cafe.
So I don't think that everyone decides to share the same way that you've decided, or maybe I don't know if it's a conscious decision, but you're offering of yourself. And again, I'm thinking back to how we started this conversation when you said, when I said of all these words on this list, you actually chose man that wasn't on the list. And I just keep thinking of you as a Renaissance man. I don't have no other way to really feel like that's who you are that I've learned about you in this conversation. And I think there's something about that, about actually giving to the community, to the communities that you're involved in, a piece of your experience that not everyone does. And are you aware of that? Is that conscious?
Building community has been a theme in my life. The co-ops and the Carnival Cafe, the collective, and in the businesses that I worked in, really tried to have a collaborative work style. In Alliance for Girls, we've built a really nice board culture and culture in the board and staff culture both, and there's a lot of consistency between that. And so I guess I'm not afraid to expose myself, to expose my failures. So I have had plenty of them, and it humanizes me, I guess.
Yeah, and I think there's something really honorable about being vulnerable to sharing that part of you, right? And I think that that's something that, as a man in our society, it's not encouraged, and it's a problem. And so I'm grateful that you are an incredible example to share your struggles, your successes, to do it with humility, and to do it with a sense of gratitude towards your time on this planet. And yeah, it's really been a joy to have this time with you today. I wanted to see if you're ready to play the People on the Path speed round of questions.
Sure.
Although before I jump in, can you tell us a little bit about your dance? Rabbi Ain referenced to it.
So when I was 18 years old, I was a theater major at Berkeley, and I took a required dance class, and I enjoyed it. And so I studied dance for a few years into my early 20s. And then when I was in my early 30s, I found Rhythm and Motion, which is an aerobic dance company here in San Francisco. And I've been a student there for 35 years. And it's just, the funnest thing you can do standing up. So yeah, everybody go to Rhythm and Motion. You can take classes online right now, and slowly the live classes are coming back. But that's another wonderful community that I've been a part of for a long time. And, the thing about dance is really, dance is a great metaphor for life, and dancers are pretty smart, but to dance successfully, you are always engaged with gravity. And, gravity begins at the center of the earth, and it comes all the way up through you. And so you're always engaged with the center of the earth as a dancer. And, that it works both in terms of being, if you're being strong, if you want any advice from me, I would say, get strong and stay as strong as you can for as long as you can. And but it works metaphorically too, right? To
Totally.
be attached to that. So.
Yep. And what's your instrument? Are you a guitarist?
Guitar.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna explore that deeper offline, Mark. Your guitar playing. We have some ideas at Beth Shalom right now for some music.
There's too many guitars. I was told there were too many guitar players, though.
Okay. I don't know. I heard a couple, but you're definitely one of them.
Think of me as a folk singer.
Perfect. All right, so here we go. The speed round of questions. I ask each guest most of these same questions. I slightly vary it depending on how the conversation has gone. But here's the first one. Mark, what are 5 necessities that you must have with you on the path?
Gosh, a good companion, wholesome food, a bed to sleep in, a physical practice, and, something to read.
Awesome. Thank you. And all right, so I because of your connection to music, and that Rabbi Aim brought up his joy of David Bowie, if you had to take one album with you on the path, one album, what album would it be?
After Bathing at Baxter's.
Say it again?
After Bathing at Baxter's, the Jefferson Airplane's 3rd album.
Awesome. All right, I got to get involved in that. Thank you for that one. And then if you could walk the path with any person, they can be a living person, they can be a person from the past, they could be a person in the future, who would you like to walk the path with?
And not my wife?
It can be your wife. Well, I think that's kind of a given that she's been on the path with you.
Yeah, right. She would be there. She would be there with me, but I would say Rabbi Lou.
What? Because you want to just have another moment with Rabbi Lou, or?
He is the most human man I ever met, and I ever knew well enough to make that judgment.
Beautiful. Mark, last question. What do you see ahead of you on the path?
What do I see ahead of me on death? But before that,
Yeah, before that.
yeah, I don't know, man, more of the same, just continuing to engage the way I can, find the joys that I can, deal with the deal with the changes that happen as you age.
Thank you, Mark. Anything else? Anything else you want to share?
Oh gosh, I don't know. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. There's, I would actually, I will say this, everybody has a story, right? Everybody's life is dramatic and dynamic and diverse. And the more you find that in each person, the less sort of special you are. And, you guys have both kind of have looked at me as being special, but I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm just, I'm a person like all of these other people I know, and, respecting others and engaging with others in a truthful way, that's the benefit of, that's like the reason to be alive. That's the benefit of life. It's not, it's just not what you get for yourself. Although the things you get for yourself are really nice, I'm not going to deny that. They really enable you to do the things that you want to do. But it's really what you give to others is the, I know that's maybe it sounds trite to some listeners, but that's really the core of what makes life meaningful. Because,
Yeah,
I can write this book, but if nobody reads it, what's the point?
Well, I think you make it sound really easy, and I don't think it is so easy. And I think that is what makes you a special person. So thank you
Well, thank
for
you.
sharing again your wisdom. Thank you for allowing us to walk on your path with you today. I'm going to finish off with just this little kind of closing paragraph that I do. And Mark, please stay on after we stop recording so we could have a goodbye. People on the Path is shared on the last Wednesday of each month. Please keep your eyes and ears open for the next edition, which will be available on Wednesday, August 25th. Thanks everyone for joining. I hope this conversation has been valuable and will support your efforts to find your footing and balance as you continue to navigate and blaze your path. One step at a time, I encourage you to walk your path with courage, wonder, curiosity, and an open mind, body, and spirit, like Mark Gunther has. Thank you again, Mark. Thank you again, Rabbi Ain. Shalom and Nisiat Tova to everyone. Safe travels along your path.